So hello and welcome back yet again to a hopefully much more exciting book where we're pursuing, at least they think right now, narwhal, where I don't think Jules Verne really knows what a narwhal truly is. I don't think even a giant narwhal would be ramming holes in ships. But then again, there was the last couple summers those orcas that were just messing up ships. So who knows when nature attacks? But we are back with Jules Verne and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is already more fun than Charles Dickens. I should not keep ragging on Charles Dickens. It's just, that was a much harder book to get through. It wasn't a bad book, it was just a harder book. And I'm looking forward to having more fun, which Jules Verne always does seem to bring to the table is fun and whimsy and adventure. And who doesn't love a good adventure? I know I do. So we are going to be reading another 2 chapters of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where yesterday we met our professor from Paris and heard a little bit about this giant sea monster that is just messing up communications between Europe and America because it keeps ramming ships. And now we're about to embark upon an expedition to find and hunt the monster down. I can't say that I'm truly in favor of hunting monsters down. I usually sympathize with the monster, but it is what it is, and that's where we are. So we're going to be reading chapters 3 and 4 of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, beginning with chapter 3, As Monsieur Pleases. 3 seconds before the arrival of J.B. Hobson's letter, I had no more idea of pursuing the unicorn than of attempting the Northwest Passage. 3 seconds after having read the secretary's letter, I had made up my mind that ridding the world of this monster was my veritable vocation and the sole aim of my life. "Counciel!" I cried in an impatient tone. "Counciel!" Counciel was my servant, a faithful fellow who accompanied me on all my journeys, a brave Dutchman I had great confidence in. He was placid by nature, regular from principle, zealous from habit, showing little astonishment at the varied surprises of life, very skilled with his hands, apt at any service, and in spite of his name, he never gave any counsel, not even when asked for it. By dint of contact with the world of savants in our Jardin des Plantes, Counciel had succeeded in knowing something. He was a specialist, well up in the classification of natural history, but his scientific knowledge stopped there. As far as practice was concerned, I do not think he could have distinguished a cachalot from a whale, and still, what a brave fellow he was. Counciel had followed me during the last 10 years, wherever science had directed our steps. He never complained of the length or fatigue of a journey, or of having to pack his trunk for any country, even remote ones, whether we go to China or Congo. But Counciel had one fault. He was intensely formal and would never speak to me except in the third person, which at times was irritating. "Counciel," I repeated, beginning my preparations for departure with a fevered hand. Certainly. I was certain of this faithful fellow. Usually I did not ask him if it was or was not convenient for him to accompany me on my travels, but this time an expedition was in question which might be very long and hazardous, in pursuit of an animal capable of sinking a frigate. This was a matter for reflection even to the most impassive man in the world. What would Counciel say? "Counciel!" I called for the third time, and he appeared. "Did monsieur call me?" he said on entering. "Yes, my boy. Get yourself and me ready to start in 2 hours." "As it pleases, monsieur," said Counciel calmly. "There's not a minute to lose. Pack up all of my traveling utensils, as many coats, shirts, and socks as you can get in, and do it quickly." "And monsieur's collections?" said Counciel. "We'll see to them presently. I will give orders to have our menagerie forwarded to France." "We are not going back to Paris, then?" said Counciel. "You know about the monster, Counciel? The famous narwhal? We are going to rid the seas of it. The author of The Great Submarine Grounds cannot do otherwise than embark with Commander Farragut. The glorious mission, but it will be dangerous. We don't know where we're going. These animals may be very capricious, but we will go whether or not. We have a captain who will keep our eyes open." "As monsieur does, so will I," said Counciel. "Well, think, for I'm going to hide nothing from you. It is one of those voyages from which people don't always come back." "As monsieur pleases." 15 minutes later, our trunks were ready. When we arrived at the Abraham Lincoln, our luggage was at once sent on board, and we soon followed it. I asked for Captain Farragut. One of the sailors conducted me to the poop, where I found myself in the presence of a pleasant-looking officer who held out his hand. "Monsieur Pierre Arnault?" he said. "That's me," I told him. "And are you Captain Farragut?" "In person." "You are very welcome, Professor. Your cabin is ready." I bowed, and leaving the commander to his duties, went down to the cabin which had been made ready for me. And that is the end of chapter 3. I kind of like Counciel. He seems like a very silly fellow, just in being so stiff and formal. I hope we see a lot of him. Anyway, I'm going to grab a drink and be right back, and we will do chapter 4. That was a fairly short chapter, but that's going to happen sometimes. We're going to read one more. I almost would say 2 more, but at least one more. And that is chapter 4, Ned Land. Captain Farragut was a good seaman, worthy of the frigate he commanded. His ship and he were one. He was the soul of it. No doubt arose in his mind upon the question of the cetacean, and he did not allow the existence of the animal to be disputed on board. The monster existed, and he had sworn to deliver the sea from it. The officers on board shared the opinion of their chief. It was amusing to hear them talking, arguing, disputing, and calculating the different chances of meeting, whilst they kept a sharp lookout over the vast extent of the ocean. More than one took up his position on the cross trees, who would have cursed the duty as a nuisance of any other time. And nonetheless, the Abraham Lincoln was not yet plowing with her stern the suspected waters of the Pacific yet. As to the crew, all they wanted was to meet the Unicorn, harpoon it, haul it on board, and cut it up. Captain Farragut had offered a reward of $2,000 to the first cabin boy, sailor, or officer who sighted the animal. I've already said that Captain Farragut had carefully provided all the tackle necessary for taking the giant cetacean. A whaler would not have been better furnished. We had every known engine, from the hand harpoon to the barbed arrow of the blunderbuss and the explosive bullets of the deck gun. Upon the forecaster lay a breech loader. This weapon could throw with great ease a conical projectile weighing 9 pounds a distance of 10 miles. Thus, the Abraham Lincoln not only possessed every means of destruction, but, better yet, she had on board Ned Land, the king of harpooners. Ned was a Canadian of uncommon skill who had no equal in his perilous employment. He possessed ability, sang-froid, audacity, and subtleness to a remarkable degree, and it would have taken a sharp whale or a wily cachalot to escape his harpoon. He owned to about 40 years of age. He was tall, strongly built, grave and taciturn, sometimes violent, and quite passionate when put upon. His person, and especially the power of his look, which gave a singular expression to his face, always attracted attention. I believe that Captain Farragut had done wisely in engaging this man. He was worth all the rest of the ship's company as far as his eye and arm went. I could not compare him to anything other than a powerful telescope, which would be a cannon always ready to fire as well. However, Ned hardly believed in the narwhal, and he was the only one on board who did not share this universal conviction. One magnificent evening, 3 weeks after our departure, on the 30th of July, the frigate was abreast of Cape Blanc, 30 miles leeward of the Patagonian coast. We had crossed the Tropic of Capricorn and the Straits of Magellan, which lay less than 700 miles south of us. In one more week, the Abraham Lincoln would be plowing the waters of the Pacific. Seated on the poop, Ned and I were talking about all sorts of things, looking at that mysterious sea whose greatest depths have remained until now inaccessible to the eye of man. I brought the conversation quite naturally to the subject of the giant unicorn, and I discussed the different chances of success in our expedition. Then, seeing that Ned Land had let me go on talking without saying a word himself, I pressed him. "Well, Ned," I said, "are you not yet convinced of the existence of the cetacean that we pursue? Have you any reason for being incredulous?" The harpooner looked at me for a few moments before he replied. He struck his forehead with a gesture habitual to him, shut his eyes as though to collect himself, and finally said, "Perhaps I have, Mr. Arnott." "Yet, Ned, you're a whaler by profession. You're familiar with the great marine mammalia, and your imagination should easily accept the hypothesis of enormous cetaceans. You should be the last to doubt these circumstances." Ned looked at me and said, "I've pursued many cetaceans, harpooned a great number, and killed some few, but however powerful or well armed they were, neither their tails or defenses could ever have made an incision in the iron plate of a steamer." "But, Ned, it is said that ships have been bored through by the tusk of a narwhal." "Maybe wooden ones," said the Canadian, "though I've never seen it, and until I get proof to the contrary, I deny that whales, cachalots, or sea unicorns could do any such thing." "Listen to me, Ned," I told him. "No, sir. Anything you like but that. Could be a giant squid, maybe." "No," I told him. "That can't be. The squid is only a mollusk. Its flesh is too soft." "So you're telling me you really do believe in this cetacean, sir?" Ned asked. "Yes, Ned. I repeat it with a conviction resting upon the logic of facts. I believe in the existence of a mammal powerfully organized, belonging to the branch of vertebrae like whales, cachalots, and dolphins, and furnished with a horn, a tusk, of which the force of penetration would be extreme. Said Ned, shaking his head like a man who will not let himself be convinced. Think about it, my worthy Canadian, I told him. If such an animal exists and it inhabits the depths of the ocean, it necessarily would possess an organization and strength that would defy all comparison. And why do you think it should have this organization? Ned asked. Well, because it requires strength to keep in such deep water and resist the pressure. If vertebrae can maintain themselves in those depths, especially whose surface is represented by millions of square inches, it is by hundreds of millions of pounds that we must estimate the pressure that they bear. So calculate then, what must be the resistance of their bony structures and the strength of their organization to withstand such pressures? They must be made of iron plates 8 inches thick, said Ned. Yes, I told him, and then think of what destruction such mass could cause if it was hurled with the speed of an express train against a ship. Ned still didn't seem convinced. Why don't you believe me? I asked. Well, you convinced me of one thing, sir, said Ned, which is, if such animals do exist at the bottom of the sea, well, they would have to be as strong as you claim. But if they don't exist, Mr. Obstinate, I said to Ned, then how do you account for the ship's accidents? Because it's, said Ned. Go on. 'Cause it's not true, said Ned. And this answer proved how obstinate Ned was, and nothing else, at least to me. And that is the end of chapter, what was that, 4? 4. And I think that's where we're going to stop tonight. These might be a little bit shorter, but if I remember anything about Jules Verne, it's that his chapters end up getting longer as time goes on. So we have more to look forward to. I'm enjoying this. I kind of like Ned. Ned is a logical fellow. I don't think I approve entirely of his profession of whaler, but I guess that was more common back then, before we realized that we were hunting things to extinction. Anyway, I really enjoyed these 2 chapters, and I hope that you did too. Please do leave me a thumbs up if you don't mind. It does always make me smile, and we will be back tomorrow. Maybe me, maybe the guest reader, but we will be back tomorrow with another couple of chapters.